I didn't even finish chewing my food before the words slapped me. He still thinks his little coding hobby is gonna pay the bills someday. Bless him. The fork hung in my hand mid-air. Her voice was sugar-coated, tossed casually into the chatter like it was harmless. But the table roared. Even her friend Rachel snorted wine out of her nose. I sat there, frozen, watching my wife laugh at me like I was the punchline to a joke everyone had already heard 1,000 times. And I realized maybe I was. The steak on my plate went cold. I smiled, sure. I even chuckled, pretending to go along with the bit. But inside something just snapped. Not loudly. Quiet like a hairline crack in glass. Invisible but fatal. The kind that keeps spreading until the whole thing shatters in your hands. That night, back home, she lay beside me in bed, scrolling through reels on her phone, laughing at some video of a guy slipping on ice. I lay stiff on my back, eyes on the ceiling, replaying her words again and again. Not the insult itself, I could have forgiven that. It was the way she said it, like it was just a fact. Like I was some failed experiment she kept around for entertainment. If you're still listening by now, do me a favor. Hit the subscribe button and drop a like. You don't know how much it helps the team keep these stories coming. Most people forget. But not you, right? Okay, back to it. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just waited for her to doze off, her face lit blue by the glow of her screen. I turned my head and watched her. Really watched her. And I couldn't remember the last time she looked at me like I was someone. Not someone special. Just someone at all. I think that was the worst part. Not the disrespect, but the indifference. Like I was furniture she'd outgrown. A couch she used to love but now barely noticed. Stained with years and sagging under the weight of disappointment. I remember thinking, how did we get here? How did the girl who once stayed up all night editing my resume become the woman who mocked me over wine and medium-rare sirloin? I could trace it back. The subtle digs. The rolling eyes when I mentioned work. The way she introduced me as he's in tech. Kind of like I ran a lemonade stand instead of building back-end systems for nonprofits. It didn't happen overnight. It was slow erosion. Every time she said, "Why don't you just get a real job?" It dug a little deeper. I kept brushing it off. Until dinner that night turned it all to rot. She rolled over and mumbled something in her sleep. I stayed still, breathing like a ghost, already not there. Because in that moment, I knew I wouldn't be waking up beside her much longer. I wasn't going to fight for my dignity. I was going to take it and go. Quietly, carefully, completely. No breakdowns. No final arguments. Just gone. And the best part? She wouldn't even see it coming. The next morning, nothing exploded. There was no dramatic fight. No slammed doors or teary apologies. I poured her coffee, kissed her on the cheek, and left for work like always. Only this time, I didn't come home until well after midnight. "Another late one?" she asked without looking up from her phone. "Yeah," I said, loosening my tie. "Just busy." She nodded absently, already back in her screen. And just like that, the first thread of our life together quietly unraveled. I started adding work trips to my schedule, real ones at first, then fabricated ones. A conference in Chicago, a client visit in Denver, a 3-day code sprint that required staying overnight near the office. Each time I left, I took something with me, a favorite jacket, a photo frame, my spare charger. It was small, almost imperceptible, but over weeks, the apartment started to feel less like home and more like a hotel I was checking out of one piece at a time. Dinner became a formality. I stopped suggesting recipes, stopped asking about her day. We ate in silence, her scrolling through Instagram, me answering urgent Slack messages that weren't urgent at all. Sometimes I'd just claim I'd already eaten at work. "Oh," she'd say, not even glancing up. One night, I told her I'd be crashing in the office guest room after a late deployment. That turned into 2 nights, then 3. Soon I had a drawer full of clothes there, a toothbrush, a set of keys. She didn't question it. Maybe she didn't want to, or maybe she genuinely didn't notice. Both possibilities were worse than anger. The detachment was deliberate, calculated. I canceled the joint gym membership under the pretense of cost-cutting. I stopped replying to our couple's group chat. I even let our anniversary pass without a single word. She blinked when she realized the date had slipped by, then shrugged and said, "We'll do something later." We didn't, and I made sure we wouldn't. What amazed me wasn't how easily I could disappear. It was how little resistance I met. It was like trying to walk out of a locked room and realizing the door was already open. The life we built had so many cracks I could slip through without effort. I started spending weekends in other cities under the guise of networking. But really, I was scouting, looking at apartments, meeting with a relocation agent who specialized in clean exits. No forwarding addresses, no paper trails. The day I transferred the bulk of my savings into a new account under my name only, I half expected a confrontation. Maybe a call from the bank, a raised eyebrow from her. Nothing. She didn't ask why I stopped using the joint card. Didn't question why her calls sometimes went to voicemail. My absence wasn't alarming to her. It was convenient. Like she was relieved to have more space to stretch out in a life she'd already decided I didn't fill. And with every step I took back, the silence between us grew louder. It filled the halls, seeped into our bed, hummed beneath the surface of every meaningless "How was your day?" Soon it was the only thing left, an invisible wall built from apathy and neglect. And behind that wall I was already gone. I started with the documents: birth certificate, passport, social security card. Stuff that sits buried in the back of a drawer until suddenly you need it. I pulled them quietly one by one, never in a rush, always when she was distracted. It became a ritual. She'd be watching some true crime doc in the living room, blanket tucked around her legs, wine glass balanced on her thigh. I'd be in the bedroom closet, pulling out the next piece of my life, scanning, encrypting, uploading to a cloud account she didn't know existed. Then came the mail. I set up a P.O. box in another city under a generic forwarding name. Bills, statements, packages, all rerouted. I used a VPN, scrubbed my search history, cleared cookies religiously. I wiped my laptop every night like I was working undercover because in a way I was living under the same roof with someone who thought I was still hers while I built my way out inch by inch. The photo albums hurt the most. Not the pictures themselves, those were just images, but the way she'd curated them. Smiling vacations, anniversary dinners, all framed like we were the ideal couple. I scanned every page in silence, one after the other, then slid them back exactly where I found them. Not because I cared, but because she'd notice if they vanished. I couldn't afford premature suspicion. I even removed the garage remote from my keychain. Just one day gone. She never asked. Probably figured I lost it. Like I lost interest, like I lost patience, like I lost my place in her world without making a sound. That's what she was good at. Noticing the big performances and missing the quiet exits. I used that. I hired movers for the new place, prepaid everything in cash. No contracts in my name, no lease she could trace. A furnished studio in a mid-rise across the state line, simple, clean, anonymous. The kind of place where no one asks questions if you keep your head down and pay on time. I visited it during a fake conference weekend. Walked through it twice, measured the closets, ran my hand over the kitchen counter and thought, this is what starting over feels like. Cold, quiet, free. I left no fingerprints. Not just literally, digitally, emotionally, financially. I withdrew from everything we once shared. No social check-ins, no couples app, no autofill addresses. I even swapped out my phone. New number, new plan. The old one stayed active, just long enough to catch her off guard when it disconnected later. Like a delayed echo of a scream no one heard in time. And still, she didn't see it. Didn't ask why I hadn't brought up the holidays. Didn't wonder why I didn't RSVP to her friend's wedding. She was too busy living inside her own curated narrative. And I let her post about balance and working through hard seasons while I packed my things behind her back. The house wasn't mine anymore. The life wasn't either. I didn't mourn it. I dissected it, step by step, clean cut after clean cut, until the only thing left tying me to her was a note she hadn't read yet, and a key I wouldn't be taking with me. It started with small changes she couldn't name. Pause before I answered. A delay before I turned toward her voice. I didn't snap, didn't sulk, didn't storm around the house like some wounded animal. I was still me but hollowed out, stripped of the soft parts that used to reach for her automatically. And because I didn't raise my voice or draw blood, she didn't panic. Not yet. She just looked at me a little longer after she said something funny, waiting for a laugh that didn't come. Or maybe hoping the blank stare I gave her was just fatigue, not withdrawal. "Want to go to the flea market this weekend?" she asked one night, standing at the kitchen island, cutting a pear like she always did. I shook my head. "Can't. Work stuff." I didn't offer an excuse, didn't explain. She blinked once, like maybe she'd imagined the flatness in my tone. "Okay," she said, drawing out the word. She always used to joke that I was terrible at hiding things. Now she couldn't read me at all, and it was driving her mad. She started texting more often. Random things. "Thinking of you. Remember this?" With a blurry photo of us at some pumpkin patch 5 years ago. I'd reply sometimes. A thumbs up. A haha. Never a question back. Never an opening. Just enough to keep her thinking maybe I was just distracted, not done. She knew something was different, but she couldn't call it abandonment. Not yet, because I was still there, technically. One night, she walked into the office guest room where I'd been crashing for work reasons, and sat on the edge of the bed in one of those old t-shirts she used to steal from my drawer. She leaned over, brushed her fingers against my chest, and said, "Hey, remember when we used to stay up all night just talking?" Her voice was soft, like she was testing the water. I looked up from my laptop, gave her a small smile and said, "You should sleep," then kissed her on the forehead like a father tucking in a child. Her smile froze halfway, not a full frown, but the flicker of realization, like something precious had just slipped between her fingers. But she said nothing. She stood slowly, nodded, and left the room. She didn't try again after that. Not in the same way. She asked fewer questions over dinner. Stopped waiting for me to chime in during conversations. I could feel her scanning me when she thought I wasn't looking, like she was trying to spot the malfunction. I wasn't angry. I wasn't hurt. I just wasn't there. Not for her. Not anymore. The routines still happened. We still brushed our teeth side by side in the morning. Still did laundry on Sundays. But everything felt automated, like background noise in a life already paused. And through it all, I gave her nothing. No clues. No outbursts. Just silence. Perfect. Suffocating silence wrapped in polite gestures and distant glances. That's what made it worse. If I'd screamed or accused her or broken something, she could have argued back. Could have fought for something. But I left her nothing to grip. Just the sinking, helpless dread of watching someone who used to love you quietly recede into someone who doesn't even need to explain why they're leaving. 3 days before I vanished, I sat at the kitchen table with a blank sheet of paper and a pen that felt heavier than it should have. I stared at it for an hour before writing a single word. The first draft was too long, pages of explanations, apologies, little jabs I wanted to throw just to prove I'd been paying attention all these years. But in the end, I crumpled it all. I didn't need her to understand. I didn't need her to agree. I needed closure, not conversation. The final version was 4 sentences. Short, plain, kind, and absolute. I folded the note carefully and placed it under the French press, right where she reached every morning before anything else. She'd see it before she saw the empty closet, before she noticed the silence where my toothbrush used to sit, before she realized the laptop charger she always borrowed was gone. It would be the first thing that told her this wasn't just another late night or another cold shoulder. This was the end. Then I started deleting all the little digital threads that kept us tethered, shared calendar events, reminders, grocery lists. Gone. I unsubscribed from the streaming accounts we split, removed myself from the family plan, left every group chat where both our names appeared. It was surgical, clean, efficient. No loose ends for her to tug on later. Just empty spaces where I used to be. I dropped my key into the drawer beside the front door. The one she always complained was a mess. I wanted it to be easy to find. No drama. No locksmith. Just a small, cold piece of metal that no longer belonged to me. Then I zipped up the suitcase I'd been slowly filling over the past 2 months. One shirt here, one pair of shoes there. Nothing rushed, nothing missing. The house still looked lived in, but my life had already left it. That morning, I stood at the doorway of our bedroom and watched her sleep. The way she curled slightly toward my side of the bed, reaching for a body that wasn't there. I thought about all the mornings I'd watched her like this, somewhere between love and resentment, between hope and numbness. This time felt different. There was no ache, no urge to crawl back under the covers. Just a quiet certainty that the chapter was over. I let my eyes trace the details one last time. The small scar on her shoulder from the time she fell off a bike, the faint crease between her brows she swore she'd fix someday, the way her hair still smelled faintly like the coconut shampoo I always teased her about. I wanted to memorize it, not to hold on, but to know exactly what I was leaving behind. Then I turned and walked out. No slammed doors, no dramatic music, just the soft click of the lock as I stepped into the cool morning air, suitcase rolling behind me. And for the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about how she'd react, or whether she'd cry, or what story she'd tell our friends. All I could think about was how unbelievably quiet the world felt without her in it. She blinked into the sunlight, groggy, already annoyed by the way it pierced through the blinds. Her hand reached instinctively across the bed, but it met nothing. Just rumpled sheets and lingering body heat. "Babe?" she called, voice cracked with sleep. No reply. She sat up, rubbing her eyes, glancing around. The bathroom door was open. The shower wasn't running. She caught the faint smell of brewed coffee and frowned. In the kitchen, the French press sat prepped but untouched, just like always. He always made it first thing, left it ready so she could stumble in and press it down herself. But something felt off. Too quiet, too hollow. She walked to the counter and saw the folded paper tucked beneath the edge of the press. A crease of confusion passed over her face. It wasn't junk mail. It wasn't a receipt. It had her name on the outside, in his handwriting. She didn't open it right away. She stood there, holding it between 2 fingers like it might burn her. Then she slowly unfolded the paper and read. 4 sentences, each one plain, direct, kind but firm like a gentle door closing. Her breath hitched. She read it again, and again. The 3rd time, she started laughing. A shaky, disbelieving noise that died in her throat. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." She turned in a circle, as if expecting him to jump out from behind the pantry. As if this was some twisted joke or elaborate punishment for her dinner party dig. She grabbed her phone, tapped his contact. It rang once. Then, "This number is no longer in service." She stared at the screen like it had betrayed her. Hit redial. Same result. She tried FaceTime. Nothing. She tried texting even though she knew he wouldn't answer. "What is this?" she typed. "Call me, please." The message sent. But no status. No read receipt. Just digital silence. The suitcase was gone. His drawer in the bathroom empty. The toothbrush missing. No razor. No cologne bottle by the sink. Her feet carried her through the apartment on instinct, opening closet doors, scanning shelves. His hoodie wasn't on the hook. His laptop charger wasn't in the wall. Even his damn cereal was gone from the top shelf. It wasn't just that he'd left. It was how he'd left, perfectly, thoroughly, like she'd been erased from his life while still asleep. She went back to the note, hands trembling now. Read it a 4th time. This time she saw it, the finality, the brutal care. No anger, no bitterness, just truth. It didn't even say goodbye. And suddenly, the laughter that had died in her throat wasn't laughter at all. It was panic, wrapped in denial, wrapped in a voice cracking under the weight of a reality she didn't see coming. She wasn't mourning the man who left. She was mourning the certainty that he wasn't coming back. Not with flowers. Not with a suitcase. Not with closure. He was gone. Not lost, gone. First, she spun the story like it was nothing. Casual. Controlled. He just needed some space, she told her group chat. pairing it with a shrugging emoji. He's been under pressure. I think he's having a little midlife reset. As if I'd wandered off to find myself in the woods, not walked out of her life with surgical precision. Her friends nodded, heart reacted, sent memes about man caves and emotional bandwidth. She laughed along, but her eyes kept flicking toward her phone, waiting for a response that never came. By midweek, the cracks started to show. Someone asked in the comments under her brunch photo, "Wait, where's he been?" She ignored it. Another followed, "Did something happen between you two?" She deleted that one, but it was too late. The silence around me wasn't suspicious, it was telling. Because while she was spinning narratives, I was showing proof of life. A new LinkedIn post. Excited to join the engineering team at Rinix Solutions. Ready for the next chapter. A photo followed, me shaking hands with the CTO. Smiling. Trim beard. Crisp button down. Clean energy. The kind of glow that made people look twice. Comments rolled in. "Congrats. Big move. Proud of you, man." No mention of her. No tags. No links. Just me. She tried to counter it. Posted an old throwback of us in Mexico. Captioned, "Missing sunny days with my favorite travel buddy." It bombed. Barely 40 likes. A few neutral comments. One of her friends replied, "Girl, this was like 4 years ago. The algorithm didn't push it. Felt stale. Staged. Dead." Then came the whisper messages. A mutual friend reached out. "Hey, is everything okay between you two?" She gave a rehearsed reply. "Yeah, he's just going through a thing. Emotional burnout. He'll bounce back." But the friend hesitated, then asked the fatal question, "But why'd he block you?" Because I had. Across the board. Phone. Instagram. Gmail. Even Venmo. There were no breadcrumbs for her to follow. Only clean, unanswered silence. And silence speaks volumes when it's sudden and complete. Then came the shift. Not in her voice, but in theirs. One by one, her friends began to soften their tone. Not toward her, but toward me. He was always quiet, but sweet. I never saw him raise his voice. He really loved you, you know? At a dinner, someone finally asked her directly, "What did you do?" She choked on her rose. The story was no longer hers. It belonged to whoever saw the glow up, the absence, the restraint. Because while she scrambled to maintain the image, I had become the mystery, the man who vanished and somehow looked better for it. Every new photo she posted, more makeup, more filters, felt like a scream into the void. Because no matter how she smiled, no matter how many captions about healing or growth she wrote, someone always commented, "Hope you're okay. He seems to be thriving." And with every like under my name and every question under hers, the wall she built around her version of the story started to crumble. Quietly, publicly, one innocent comment at a time. The call came late. One of those quiet Thursday nights when the city hums soft through your windows and everything smells like dry paper and dust. I knew the number before I answered. Her sister. The one who used to call me the good one. The one who rolled her eyes when my wife got too sharp at family dinners but never said anything. I hadn't heard her voice since the wedding anniversary party 2 years ago. That night, she hugged me tighter than she did her own brother. Tonight, she just sighed. "She's not eating," she said, like it was an update I was supposed to flinch at. "She's been staying in bed all day. Says she can't focus. That everything feels heavy." I waited. Let the silence sit between us. She wanted me to fill it, to say, "I'll talk to her," or "I'll come check on her." But I didn't. "She didn't think you'd actually leave," she added, softer this time, like it hurt to admit, like saying it made it real. I stared out the window at a world that hadn't stopped turning, at the street lamp blinking steadily, at my new life that didn't carry the smell of her shampoo or the weight of her mood swings. Then I said, calmly, without cruelty, "She didn't think I'd ever have the self-respect to walk." The line went quiet. I could hear her breathing, shallow, uneven. Then came the whisper, Are you coming back?" I smiled. Not cruelly, not triumphantly, just sadly. Because in another version of our lives, she wouldn't have had to ask. In another life, I'd never have had to leave. But I'd spent too many years breaking myself into shapes that fit her moods, her circles, her public image. I'd folded and folded and folded until there was nothing left but creases where my edges used to be. No, I said. This is me respecting myself. Her sister didn't fight it, didn't beg. Maybe because she knew. Maybe because some part of her had always seen it. The exhaustion in my eyes, the way I flinched when her voice sharpened in public. Maybe she'd just finally accepted that the man who used to take it was gone. And in his place stood someone who remembered how to stand up straight. She's not the same, she said, one last attempt. She's scared. So was I replied. I hung up gently. No slam, no sting. Just the final soft click of a door that would never open again. And then I went back to slicing vegetables for dinner, in a kitchen that smelled like basil, not regret. It was late afternoon when she showed up. Jacket wrinkled, hair pulled back in a rush, eyes that hadn't slept in days. The receptionist didn't recognize her. Why would she? The front desk had turned over months ago. She asked if I still worked there. The girl tapped a few keys, shook her head, said, "No one by that name." She blinked, confused. "But this is his office. This is where he—" The girl shrugged. "Might have been before. Sorry." She walked outside into the sun that was too bright for how hollow she felt. I wasn't there. My car wasn't parked in the corner like it used to be. The building directory no longer listed my name. Even the faded little mailbox in the front room had been replaced. She stood there like a statue, caught between memory and reality, watching strangers walk in and out of a space that used to belong to me. She pulled out a card from her purse. One of those pre-embossed ones with watercolor flowers and a blank inside. She'd written in it with shaky hands the night before, every word a wound she hadn't known she could bleed. "I forgive you. I'm sorry. Please let's talk." She hadn't written her number. She assumed I'd remember it. I didn't. She left the card with the receptionist. "If he ever stops by, can you give him this?" The girl looked at it like someone had just handed her a relic from a forgotten war. "Sure," she said, voice flat, already placing it on the corner of the desk. Forgotten before the door even clicked shut behind her. She didn't cry right away. She walked to her car slowly, as if her legs weren't quite listening. Sat behind the wheel, hands at 10 and 2, stared out at the building like it might rewind itself and spit me back out. I didn't come. I wouldn't. 2 days later, my landlord sent me a photo. The card, still sealed, lay half-folded in the trash bin next to the building entrance. He'd seen her leave it. "She cried a bit," he said. "Just stood there for a while, then left." I stared at the photo longer than I meant to, not out of guilt, not out of nostalgia, just curiosity, wondering if she'd meant it, if she'd finally realized how easy it had been to keep slicing me down until I disappeared. But I didn't open the card, didn't ask what it said, because whatever words she'd written, they came too late, too far past the silence, too far past the point where closure mattered. She chased a version of me that didn't live in that building anymore. That room, that desk, that life, I'd already cleaned it out. Not just the physical things, but the version of myself who'd once waited at that window, hoping she'd remember how to love me. That man was gone, and the room she stood in front of was just an echo, a vanishing point she arrived at long after the lights were off. It was late, the kind of late where the world feels suspended. The room dim but not dark, her laptop humming softly on her legs as the algorithm fed her another round of people she used to know. A coworker got promoted. An old classmate launched a startup. Then, without warning, there I was, smack in the middle of her screen like a ghost that didn't haunt but smiled. She froze, scrolled back, looked again. The thumbnail was sharp. I stood on a stage, holding a mic in one hand, a spotlight catching just enough of my smile to make it glow. My name beneath it bold. My title new. Not freelancer or consultant. Something solid, respected, real. I was speaking at a panel in Seattle about scaling software for nonprofits. She didn't know I'd moved to Seattle. She didn't know I'd scaled anything. She didn't know anything. She clicked the link and watched the first 2 minutes on mute. I was laughing with the moderator, answering a question with ease, gesturing like I'd been doing this for years. Confident, clean-cut, relaxed. Not the man she'd clowned at dinner parties. Not the man who begged her to believe in him when his startup made no money but all the sense in the world. Not the man she'd left in bed with half a coffee waiting. Her thumb hovered over the trackpad. She didn't scroll, just stared, and something in her chest tightened. Slow at first, then sharp. Regret? Maybe. Shame? Probably. Whatever it was, it made her click into my profile. And there it all was, laid out like a roadmap of a life she never asked about. New job. New city. A glowing recommendation from a CEO she didn't recognize. Smiling photos with people she'd never met. A timeline with no gaps. Just growth. For a full 5 minutes, she didn't move. Then, almost like a reflex, she grabbed her phone and typed one line. "You look good." Simple. Neutral. Harmless. A pebble tossed into still water, hoping it would ripple. She stared at it. Hovered her thumb over send. Then did it. Message delivered. No typing bubbles. No dots. Just silence. 10 minutes later, her screen refreshed. Blocked. Not a dramatic message. Not a leave me alone. Just gone. Her message faded to gray, permanently unread. She blinked. Tried to open our old chat history. Error. She tried searching for my name again on LinkedIn. Profile not found. The ghost hadn't just smiled. He'd vanished again, this time with finality. And somewhere, states away, I was still smiling. Not out of spite. Not even out of triumph. Just peace. Because there's something profoundly satisfying about knowing the last image someone has of you isn't broken or bitter or begging. It's you laughing. Free. Alive in a version of yourself they never bothered to believe could exist. She never saw me unravel. She only saw me rise. And she'll never get a closer look.